wasn't expecting to have to do this, but I was searching online for builds that use the regular Twisted Arbalest, and nobody knows what to do with this thing. I've been experimenting, and I found some neat tech that enables this gun to be used as a full-time strategy, so I started doing research to see if this kind of build already existed, so that I could flesh out my knowledge and try to optimize this, but I couldn't find anybody using the gun like this. Back in the day, you had the standard Hugs good stuff build that you could just slot any weapon into to do generic crit things. People were trying Bandit and Slayer to get the most out of the disc, and I think Gunfire Games responded to this like, hey, everybody keeps trying to force the disc, let's just create a corrupted version of the gun that gives them what they want. And now that the corrupted Arbalest plays nicely with what people expected it to do, the original Arbalest has kind of been left in the dust by the community. Nobody ever really figured out how to play to this gun's strength, so I guess that's my job now. This is a mod-focused build. To that end, we have Archon for regen and Summoner for damage. Those of you who have ever tried to build for the Arbalest before, or even the Meridian, for example, probably already know about the synergy between Summoner and Explosive mods because it double dips on the damage perk being both mod damage and explosive damage. But what if I told you that that is not even the strongest synergy that Summoner has with this gun? And we'll get back to that. For jewelry, we want Reed of the Vaunt. If you don't have it, you can use something like Jester's Bell, but we prefer the Reed because it has mod regen plus a bandit-like effect for your mods, and this is important because we are trying to optimize for maximum mod uptime. So to that end, we have Spirit Stone and Follower. The other mod generation rings have downsides or conditions that we can't afford to play around at present, so Warlock is out, for example. Our defensive setup, it's not super robust, it's just good dodges with some health regen. If you're confident with your dodges and you feel like you don't need Untouchable or Diversion, you can swap Diversion with Shard Banded Ring, for example, and you could swap Untouchable with Swiftness. Basic stuff on our relic: health, mod cost, mod damage. And now on to the star of the show, the original Twisted Arbalest, and more specifically the mod Guardian's Call, combined with the mutator feedback for maximum uptime. So how does this gun work? You shoot the disc, and everything that it hits gets marked as a conduit for Guardian's Call explosions. The more enemies you hit with this thing, the more damage it will do because the explosions overlap and can deal a lot of damage to individuals caught in the AoE of multiple explosions. Because of this, the Arbalest maps extremely efficiently. It is excellent at clearing out maps. Overkill, you could even say. Unfortunately, for those of you who have ever tried to make this gun work, the dummy test is quite deceptive because there are a lot of bosses in this game who only rarely, or sometimes never, have ads for you to chain explosions off of, let alone bounce discs off of. So everyone who got to this point kind of just put the gun down and wrote it off as a situational tool, but I have discovered a solution to our problem. Did you know that the disc can tag friendly NPCs? It doesn't deal damage to them, but it spawns an explosion anyway, and this explosion can damage enemies. So normally, if you're fighting a boss that doesn't have any ads near them to bounce off of and explode, your DPS is agonizingly low, as you deal one explosion at a time and then wait for the mod to slowly come back. But with a minion from Summoner, we can artificially introduce a second conduit for Guardian's Call and literally double our DPS. Now, I hear you saying, how can this be consistent? The disc doesn't like bouncing to our minion, it can only intentionally target enemies, so getting it to hit our minion sounds difficult and awkward. Well, now comes the best part of this build, and why I think it's so funny and fun. We simply don't ever shoot the boss. We always shoot our minion, as long as it's close. The disc itself is not contributing a lot of damage, so we're not losing it to our DPS. We just shoot our minion, and we get the overlapping explosions. So as you've probably guessed, that is why we are spec'd into Rugged and Kinship. If our minion dies, we lose a substantial portion of our DPS. As for our other weapons, these are kind of to taste. I like All Reliable Misfortune Cracks. Instant access to a slow effect will help you stay alive against elites. And Nebula just gives us everything we could want from a secondary, and it synergizes really well with what we're already doing. Our passive mod regen alone outpaces the duration of Nanoswarm, so it has 100% uptime, and you should always have it active so that the corrosion is boosting our damage. For traits, we lean heavily on survivability traits and dip slightly into offensive utility. The only notable ones relevant to our output are Spirit and Amplitude. Spirit for the mod regen, and Amplitude for the larger explosions, because we want them to be overlapping, and having a bigger AoE makes that much easier. The rest of these are to taste survivability. I like having a mixture of damage reduction and good dodges, but you can turn that dial to either side of the spectrum to suit your needs. Let's talk about our summon. I prefer the Reaver, but on paper, the Hollow is actually the superior choice, since we're not really counting on our summon to deal damage. We just need them to act as a conduit for Guardian's Call, and we get 2 of these guys on a shorter cooldown, which means you'll rarely ever be without one. In practice, though, I find that these guys are actually really hard to hit in the chaos of a boss fight. So I would only recommend them if you're an aim god. I'm not him, and let's be honest, you're not him either. Flyers. They're highly situational, and I wouldn't recommend them for most circumstances, because they back away from whatever they're targeting, which is the opposite of what we need them to do. The only times you could justify their use are if the boss arena is very small, like the Sunken Witch fight, or if the boss is flying and your other minions just straight up wouldn't reach them, like Mother Mind. I find that Reaver is the most consistent option for this. He's just a nice, big, easy target and has a lot of health. Easy to hit means less thinking required from you, so you can focus on playing defensively. He takes healing really well. He takes buffs really well. He's just overall the best option for this. So that's the build explained. Now, before I showcase some of the boss fights, there's a few other things I want to go over that you might not know about. Another build I've seen for the Twisted Arbalest was kind of a status build that leveraged the mod Voltaic Rondour, because you can actually bounce the disc off of the ball. Personally, I think this idea better suits the Corrupted Arbalest, but that is a thing you can do. I don't think it's better than Nebula, or this other option. That other option being Root Lash. Your summoner minions are not the only thing you can tag with Guardian's Call. This same tech works with the Root Lash tentacles. If you find that your minions are dying a lot, or you're just up against a boss that kills them really quickly, like Bruin from the Awakened King DLC, having a gun with Root Lash can be a good alternative for the Nebula in situations like that, just to ensure that you're getting your overlapping explosions. Sadly, this does not work with Space Crabs, because why would Gunfire ever let this mod be good? That's all I have for you. So we'll get to the boss fights. Do not subscribe to me. I am not a content creator.
Welcome. Tell us, stranger. Is that so? What a lark this is.